The Fantasy Football Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds on every major sport, WynnBET has what you need to win. Sign up today and bet $100 and win a $100 free bet at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today. We're also brought to you by the SGPN merch store. Use promo code NFC Beast for 15% off. This is active until the Eagles or the Giants lose their first game. And welcome into the Fantasy Football Podcast presented by the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. I am your host, Justin Bruni. Joining me today, we have Brad, one of our SGPN analysts, and Austin from the Makeshift Managers Podcast. Welcome to Week 8, gentlemen, and happy Halloween. I know Brad showed up dressed. I'm doing kind of a college kickback here, and, you know, Austin looks like a miserable football fan this year, Dallas Cowboys fan.
Not my favorite costume this year, let me tell you.
But we all got to put one on. We all got to do it. And some days we wear them more than others.
That's right.
How are you guys doing today?
Good. I was going to put the mask on, but I can't. I just can't do it. I can't sit here for an hour breathing in my own hot air while trying to provide somewhat reasonable fantasy takes. So I'll
you didn't
save
make the hole in the mouth for the bourbon straw?
No. I figure, what if some kids watch this and see Spider-Man drinking bourbon? That might not be a good correlation to put out to some children. So I'll pass for now.
Honestly, seeing Superman getting drunk on the south side of Chicago is probably my favorite Superman of any Superman. That's just me. How about you, Austin? How you doing today, bud?
Good. Just woke up not too long ago here on the West Coast, hanging out. Not a whole lot going on today. Just waiting until Sunday, honestly. Get up nice and early for London football tomorrow and all that cool jazz.
What time is that for you? I mean, obviously, you know, we appreciate you coming on to our show, but this is relatively, like, you know, I think a decent hour. What time does that game start for you tomorrow?
6:30 in the morning. So generally I set an alarm for like 6:15 just to be sure, because I avoided the Kamara out. I moved him out the second he was ruled out like 3 weeks ago. So I don't think anyone's going to get ruled out tomorrow, but I do have ETN. So just in case he like trips and falls in the hotel, I'll check my fantasies right before that game starts.
In case Snoop Connor pushes him down an escalator.
Exactly.
This is my chance. This is as close as it's going to get. All right. Well, let's jump into today's show. We've got some starter sit questions to go over. We're also going to be grading some trades, and we also have some fantasy over-under picks to make via Underdog. So, you know, just looking at fantasy point totals. Also, want to let you guys know we are giving away another free jersey. We're doing a Deebo Samuel jersey giveaway. All that you need to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel. So if you're watching the video now, just like the video, subscribe, and comment on any video. Send a screenshot of those two completed tasks following our channel and leaving a comment to @SGPN Fantasy. You're instantly entered to win. We're up to like 91 subscribers on YouTube right now, and I think that we added about, I want to say 40 or 50 through the last contest. So 1 out of 40 to 50 chances to win a free jersey, right? Pretty solid, especially if you're a Deebo fan. We gave away a free DeAndre Swift jersey, so we're moving along here. Now on to Deebo. All right, so we're jumping into some starter sit questions now. I'm just going to throw it at you guys, and we'll just kind of do a little, circle of this. We got Aaron Rodgers at Buffalo or Justin Fields at Dallas. For reference, Fantasy Pros has Aaron Rodgers at quarterback 18 this week and Fields at 19. Austin, we'll start with you. You're the Dallas Cowboys fan. Fields is playing the Cowboys. Where are you at with this one?
Man, this is something. I've underestimated the Dallas defense all year, even as a Dallas fan. I've been like, okay, we do have some holes. There's got to be some holes somewhere, and they've just dominated throughout. Even against the Eagles, they played a really good game for the most part, despite all the turnovers and such. I'm going to go with Justin Fields here, simply on the rushing upside that he has. I just don't foresee Rodgers, especially without Lazard, getting a whole lot done against the Buffalo secondary. They've completely abandoned the run. I don't even know if they're going to be able to run the ball down so quick with Jones and Dillon. I just can't say to start Rodgers this week. He's looked so bad against Washington. You're telling me he's going to look any better against Buffalo. So give me
Mhm.
Fields. I think he can rush in for a touchdown even against Dallas.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little contrarian to that, just because we've seen Buffalo in some of those games with better quarterbacks. If you go back and you think about the Patrick Mahomes game, some of those games, they get out of hand pretty quick. They turn into a really high scoring matchup. Now, their defense is solid, don't get me wrong, and the loss of Alan Lazard is going to be tough, but give me that garbage time, right? I think Buffalo is going to go up pretty early, pretty quick, and Aaron Rodgers is going to have to throw the ball. And I think Dallas's defense is going to absolutely eat Justin Fields for lunch on Sunday. It is the pass rush that they're going to get there is not going to be like anything that he's seen up to this point. And I think he's going to struggle because if he doesn't have that first read, he's going to start to run. But they've got some linebackers that can really play up close to the line of scrimmage. I think they're going to try to spy him and force him to kind of be able to throw to beat him, and it's just not going to work out for him. So I think the play for me is Rodgers just based on that volume and the unknown of Justin Fields.
Yeah, so I've got Fields at quarterback 13 this week, and also, like Fantasy Pros, have Aaron Rodgers at 18. So a little bit of a margin ahead there. I'm going with Austin here. The same thing as with the safe rushing floor. Fields has rushed for 170 yards in the past 2 weeks, 80-plus rushing yards in the past 2 games. And last week, I believe he topped it off with a rushing touchdown as well. 3 words: quarterback designed runs. Most of the beginning of the season for Fields, he was just running for his life. And I believe he is the most sacked quarterback this season. I know he was last year. I think that's still holding water this season. Great way to combat that. Don't even try to pass. Don't even try it. Just set up to play action or set up quarterback design runs, which is something that they did heavily up against the Patriots, where they were 8.5 dogs. They're coming in as 10-point dogs this week. Same thing. I like the theme with Aaron Rodgers in garbage time, but I'll take the same for the Bears in garbage time. If they're down early, you're just going to see Fields take a couple more shots downfield and probably just take a lot more safe runs. Kids got to make it off the field at the end of the day. So I'm going Fields here. And I just like what the Detroit defense was able to do up against Dallas last week. I think we might see a bit of a closer game in Chicago than Dallas. So because of that, the game being more competitive, the safer floor for Fields with the rushing game. Rodgers, like you mentioned, Austin, going to be missing Lazard. Could be a big Robert Tonyan week, but who's going to fill in the holes? Is it going to be Romeo Dubes? I know Christian Watson was back at practice this week. Dare I say Sammy Watkins? I don't know where that garbage production is going to come from. Maybe it's the big Aaron Jones week, but just too many questions up there in Green Bay. And I like the progressions that we've seen from Chicago the past 2 weeks. All right, next up, we've got Najee Harris at the Eagles or Michael Carter versus New England. We saw the Bears rushing offense do pretty well on the ground last week. Do you guys trust Michael Carter without Breece Hall, but with James Robinson, or Najee Harris, who's just kind of been, treading water, we'll say? I think that's putting it nicely. What do you think, Austin?
Najee's been impossible to figure out this season. As a first or second round pick, it's been really tough to start him, and expectations were really high. So anything that isn't like a teen amount of points, it's been frustrating for Najee Harris. And then you got Michael Carter, who's kind of taken a backseat to Breece Hall, and now they trade for James Robinson. We don't know what James Robinson's going to be. I feel like because Bill Belichick has been so good against Zach Wilson and just like first year and second year quarterbacks all around, I'm going to go with Michael Carter on the back of a lot of checkdowns. I expect a lot of checkdowns to Michael Carter because Wilson is going to be running for his life a little bit. I don't think he's going to be able to chuck it. I believe he's without Corey Davis this week, but he gets Elijah Moore back. But I mean, we've seen Wilson. He hasn't thrown for a ton of yards all season long because he hasn't really had to. His defense has been really good. So I think the defense will keep the Jets in this game because we don't know what we're going to get from Mac Jones. But just to get the production going, I think he'll check down to Carter a lot. So I think he'll get a lot of points just out of that.
Good stuff. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I think Michael Carter's a player here. If you think about the first couple weeks before they really fully integrated Breece Hall into that offense, he was a guy getting massive amounts of targets. He was still getting, a decent amount of carries. So I see a very similar, hey, look, James Robinson, it's the first weekend. He's not going to get a ton of work, right? So I think that volume is going to be there for Michael Carter to be able to produce decent rushing floor and, like Austin said, give you some of that passing upside or that receiving upside as well. He's a pretty explosive player with the ball in his hands when he's got a little bit of space. So I like Michael Carter in as much as it pains me to say over a first or second round redraft pick in Najee Harris, but you just can't trust that Steelers offensive line. You can't trust Philly's run deep. We didn't even talk about the fact they're playing Philadelphia, who has a really solid rushing defense as well. So I'm smashing Michael Carter on this one.
Yeah, I think this one is actually a little bit easier. Najee Harris, I know everyone is still, kind of just, I got to get something out of him, right? You know what I mean? Like, he was my first round pick. He was my second round pick. Like, how can I bench him at this point? We're about halfway through the fantasy season. I think you can get rid of your ADP concerns, right? Michael Carter did lead this team in rushing attempts last year. He was the guy. He's most familiar with the system. So this is the week that I feel safest starting Michael Carter, because I think as the weeks go on here, as Robinson gets more familiarity with the playbook, with the offense, this is going to become more of an even split, especially once they get down to the red zone. I got to imagine, if you went out and got James Robinson, that's the place that you're going to use him, the most, where he's going to get his most volume, right? He didn't bring him in to catch passes back there. I mean, they're giving end around screens and catches to Braxton Berrios out of the backfield. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to be James Robinson's role. But I do like James Robinson, in the upcoming weeks. New England allowing the third fewest fantasy points to the running back position, and Philly the 13th fewest. So neither really has a good matchup. And I actually think that Harris might find himself a touchdown, but even if he does that, the rushing production and the lack of catches consistently throughout the season keeps his floor much lower, than Michael Carter. So even if Harris were to find the end zone, I still think this week, with the pass catching, with the all-purpose yards, that Michael Carter will still be the better option and have more fantasy points come the end of week 8. So we got a clean sweep there. Everybody in favor of Michael Carter over Najee Harris. Well, I did trade for Najee Harris this week, anger trading. I gave up a first-round pick, but I lost Breece Hall and Mike Williams. It happens. You get a little emotional. Start throwing picks around. But though I did give up a first-round pick for Najee, I'm in win now mode. My pick's going to be at the end of the first round. I did avoid giving up a whole haul of picks for Jamar Chase. I offered like 4 or 5 picks for Jamar Chase, and the guy's like, I can't do it. It's like, thank you.
It's funny because I'm in the exact opposite position. I'm sending picks right now for Hall, Williams, all these guys who are done for the year. I'm like,
that's not bad.
You don't need them. I'll pick them.
No, absolutely. I think Breece Hall right now, like, if you're in the bottom of your league right now, I mean, I wouldn't want to give up a first round pick right now, because if you have a top 5 pick for next year, I don't know if I want to swap that with Breece. I mean, we still didn't even see a full season of him, but if you can get a future first or a next year second or something like that, I'm all in. Like, that would be a great swap for me. All right, next up, we've got the wide receivers. We've got DJ Moore this week against Atlanta. Are you buying the upswing in DJ Moore, or Christian Kirk with a bad matchup up against Denver, 6:30 a.m. Austin's time tomorrow? What do you think, Austin? Which way are you going?
I have told people to sit Kirk all week, so I think I'm going to sit with that. Neither of them are going to be facing. Actually, I don't know what the health of AJ Terrell is.
He's out.
He is out. Okay, so that hammers my DJ Moore pick. I think Christian Kirk's going to be stuck to Pat Surtain all day long. I think they're going to be feeding ETN a lot, even against a good Denver defense. I've told people I can't play Kirk this week. Pat Surtain is an extremely good cornerback. He's killed it all year. Yes, DJ Moore had one good week with PJ Walker, but now, especially with the AJ Terrell news, I'm hammering DJ Moore.
What do you think, Brad?
I agree with that. We talked a little bit about that pre-show. Like, if AJ Terrell was playing, even though Atlanta gives up the most points to the wide receiver position, they're still like, that's not looking at the entirety of the situation, where AJ Terrell is an absolute monster at the cornerback position. I want to say he was top 5 PFF rated corner in yards allowed and targets. So, but with him being out, I just think DJ Moore is going to have even more opportunity to just be open as whenever he wants to be open, which he's really good at. It's just he hasn't had the quarterbacks kind of get him the ball, and it looks like PJ Walker's okay kind of hyper targeting him a little bit, giving him a little more opportunity. And Christian Kirk, I just not only is it the Denver defense, he's really kind of cooled off since those first few weeks, and it hasn't come to fruition. Jacksonville, we talked about that pre-show also, right? Jacksonville looked really good early on. And the longer the season's gone on, the more kind of issues you're starting to see on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm kind of moving away from anybody not named Travis Etienne as much as possible in that Jacksonville offense.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Honestly, even if AJ Terrell was in the lineup, I think that you just look at the body of work that the Falcons defense has put together. And if you're looking at these things, for, prior to any of that information, I still think you go with DJ Moore over Kirk just because of, everything you just mentioned about the Jaguars and this matchup up against the Broncos. Like, in a nutshell, even with everyone healthy, I would still go DJ Moore here, because if you own DJ Moore and you're looking at your upcoming matchups, first off, you probably struggled if you own DJ Moore. Let's get that straight, right? So this is the week that you got to start him. He's coming off a good week. He has a favorable matchup. Even if he did have a decent corner up against him, they're going to move him around the field. And I would use that same argument for Kirk as well. I still believe that Kirk could have a productive week this week. I'm banking on DJ Moore to find the end zone again, and I'm not banking on Kirk to find the end zone this week. Just keeping it as simple as I can, right? I still think that Kirk could come down with 4 to 6 catches, 60 plus yards, and just not being that overwhelming of a week, right? Like, just kind of, fitting in at the back end of wide receiver 2, early wide receiver 3, but not being that booming option in our lineups, right? Let's head over to the chat a little bit here. We've got Evan asking some relevant questions to the show, some guys that we've covered. And then we've got someone else who just entered a question as well. We'll get to them here in a second. Pick 2, half-point PPR. Michael Carter, Najee, Eno Benjamin, or DJ Moore. Pick 2. So we've already covered these. I'm going to guess that we're out on Najee because we already said we're in on Michael Carter. And I feel like with the DJ Moore talk we just had here, we may propel him over Eno Benjamin. But tell me if I'm wrong here, guys. I feel like Carter and DJ Moore are the top 2, and Najee and Eno are the bottom 2. What do we got?
Oh, my God. In what world are we in where I'm going to say what I'm getting ready to say? Out of these 4 names, I'm going Michael Carter and Eno Benjamin.
Okay.
6 months ago, this wouldn't have even been a question, right? But here we are going into week 8. DJ Moore with a 3rd, 4th-string quarterback, Najee with a terrible offensive line. We talked through all that stuff. But Eno Benjamin looked really good against the New Orleans defense that historically has been pretty good against the run. They're starting to kind of waver a little bit this season. But he's got another pretty easy matchup against the Minnesota Vikings this week. And he got 5 targets last week. He looked really explosive with the ball in his hand, running as well. Ended up with that touchdown. So I'm going Carter and Eno Benjamin here.
What do you got, Austin?
I just looked up Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams is a game time decision. So I think for me, excuse me, if Darrell Williams is deemed out, I'm going to say Eno Benjamin and DJ Moore. I know I just talked really big about Michael Carter, but that's over Najee Harris. I still feel a little iffy about the Jets offense all around. So if Darrell Williams is out, I'm going to go Eno Benjamin and DJ Moore. But if Darrell Williams is in, it would really depend on what the notes look like for me, how limited he's going to be, because I don't trust a thing Cliff Kingsbury says anymore. I haven't for the past year and a half. So if Darrell Williams is in any sort of way whatsoever, we already saw Keontae Ingram, if I remember his name right.
Yep, that's right.
Took a touchdown from Eno, and that was frustrating until he got that late touchdown.
Right.
Then I would go Michael Carter over Eno Benjamin. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I love the matchup up against Minnesota, but like you had said, Darrell Williams potentially coming back. And also keep in mind, too, with Carolina, they're going to be missing Chuba Hubbard. So they're down a rushing option. You may see a couple extra carries this week for DJ Moore, who's been used in that rushing attack. So I just can't get off of DJ Moore this week in that really favorable matchup, because there may still be weeks ahead where you can start Eno Benjamin. This is it for DJ Moore. Like, if going forward, his matchups aren't going to be as favorable. The amount of playing time won't be as there. And this is just the week to get rich on him. All right, next up, what's up, guys? In a dilemma, don't know who to drop for a defense and kicker. Ouch. Bench, Madison, Gallup, A-Rob, Khalil Herbert, A.J. Dillon. Had to stream quarterback and tight end as Herbert and Kelsey are on bye. So this is who we're looking to drop. I think we need a little bit more information. I think we need to know how many teams are in your league. That's for sure. And what the outlook is. Can you get these guys back up or get them back onto your roster potentially? I think, and knowing very little information here, for me, it's Madison and Gallup. But I think Gallup and A-Rob could be pretty close. I'm not willing to give up, these other handcuffs and Herbert and Dillon because they're just more active handcuffs. Whereas Madison, you really need the injury there for him to have an active role in the offense. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's interesting because the context you're talking about is really important. Are you a contending team where you're moving into the playoff, that playoff stretch where I don't know that I would get rid of Alexander Madison or Herbert or Dillon, right? I'd probably be looking at Allen Robinson and Gallup in that situation because it gives you a little bit of insurance if you are that Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, which is very plausible. You've got the three of those guys depending on where you drafted in the league. So I'd be looking at Gallup and A-Rob in that situation. If you're tight on the wide receivers, then you definitely look at, I would still drop Allen Robinson and Alexander Madison at that point. I think Allen Robinson is kind of the surefire drop for me out of this group. He doesn't have the connection that we had all kind of wanted with Matthew Stafford. And I know he looked better last week, but I'm looking at that kind of the exception right now, not the rule.
If it's a 10-team league, I would drop Allen Robinson. But if it's 12 or more, I feel like when I go back to the waiver wire to recoup that loss, the options are just going to be more limited.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, too, I need to know if there's any other wide receivers left on the bench because I would feel really bad telling you to drop Allen Robinson and Michael Gallup when you still need to fill buys at some point with those guys because Van Jefferson's coming back, so Allen Robinson is going to be even less now. Van Jefferson takes all the deep shots. And with Michael Gallup, I love Michael Gallup, don't get me wrong, but it feels like Dallas just doesn't have to score a ton of points all year long to win. So Dak doesn't really need to heave the ball as much, especially with Zeke getting a lot of red zone work and Pollard getting a lot of get up there kind of work. I'm kind of on the A-Rob and Gallup train too, but especially if Madison got traded, that would be really interesting to see. I do like Herbert and Dillon. I think I dropped Dillon in a league because I couldn't take it anymore, but I do have him in another league where I'm just kind of iffy about him. So if you don't have any other wide receivers left on your bench, I would hold on to Gallup because he feels like he has the most value and then drop Madison. But if you have more wide receivers to fill buys coming down, then you could probably just drop those two.
Right on. All right, let's get back to the starter sits. Keep the questions coming, chat. We are here to help. All right, next up, we've got a couple of tight ends. They're not pretty. All right, Dawson Knox versus Green Bay or Greg Dulcich at Indianapolis. We'll start with Austin.
Broncos country. Let's ride.
Let's die.
We died. Yeah, I'm going to go with Dulcich. I still don't know what to think of Knox right now. I think he's a good tight end, but I just don't know how much Josh Allen is going to look his way right now. I know he got a touchdown 2 weeks ago, and then they had their bye, so I feel okay about Knox. But with Russ playing, he has looked Dulcich way a little bit, and Indy does have some good corners that'll lock down Sutton and Judy, so they may not get a ton of looks, and Dulcich might get those 5-10 yard throws here and there. So I think I'll take Dulcich here.
What do you think, Brad?
Yep. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm with Dulcich. Even as good as people as much as people like Dawson Knox, he's never been that volume tight end. He's been that guy that gets kind of 3 targets and a touchdown type of deal.
Yep.
And while we don't really know what we have in Greg Dulcich, because in his first game back from injury with Russell Wilson, he only saw a few targets, right? But you saw that they targeted him in the red zone quite a bit. He came back last week, played with Brett Rippon, and had 9 targets. So I'm looking at a guy that I think might have a little bit more volume on an offense that is not that great, but I'd rather take volume over, hoping for that touchdown right now.
Right, absolutely. And that's where I'm going to. So that first week back with Russ, scored the touchdown. The following week, 6 for 9, over 50 receiving yards. That's all we're asking for out of a tight end right now. We're not even asking for Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, random weeks. We're just asking for a safe floor. Get us 5 catches. Get us over 50 receiving yards, and we'll think you're like the greatest tight end ever. You know what I mean? I think Knox, like you guys have mentioned, There's a little bit more risk there. There's so many more weapons in the Buffalo offense. They could get up. We had mentioned garbage time in that game, and I'm thinking like, oh, well, could Knox find himself this supposed garbage time touchdown? Don't have a lot of faith in it because they could get into park the bus mode. We could see the Bills put up 24 by halftime, only score another 10 points in the second half, and win by double digits. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not a game that I'm like trying to just get as much of pieces in as I can, albeit, the Denver game, pretty similar. I'm not looking for a ton of action there, but like you guys had mentioned, like corners for Indy corners for Indy, very good, right? I think that Dulcich will probably have 4 to 5 catches, maybe a touchdown, but really that's all I'm looking for is just someone that I feel safe with. Dulcich, what is he? Tight end 16, according to Fantasy Pros. Knox is 15. I've got him at 13 and 14. So I think that either option, is a little bit safer than, throwing out, your Cole Kmets, right? Your Dalton Schultz is this year. My goodness, like crazy to say. We got one more question in the chat. I think it's the same guy. Yeah, Smokey the Cat. 12 team PPR, 5-2, tied in second. My starting team is Herbert, JJ, AJ Brown, Najee, Hendo, Kelsey, Godwin. I'm down by 25 points without a kicker.
Yeah, that was the original question, right? He needs to drop 2 players to pick up a defense and a kicker to finish.
Well, don't overreact to Thursday night. Big deal. You're down by 25 points. That means the other guy doesn't have other people playing on Sunday. I'm certainly not trying to tell you to go out and win this week without a defense or a kicker, but the points really aren't too much of a concern there.
Well, I mean, you're also missing Kelsey, like at that point, like so.
Yeah, I mean, you might just have to take it on the chin this week. You just don't do anything that's going to be too overreactive. You know what I mean? Like we had mentioned some safe drop options here. Obviously in some leagues they're not going to be as safe because I'm in a lot of leagues where if Madison was dropped, he's getting picked right back up. There's not going to be much of a waiting time there. And same thing with Gallup and A-Rob. So you got to know your league. You got to know your competition. And really, I guess that's what I would go with is like, who do you think your league would be the lowest on out of this group? But you're 5-2. So even if you take it on the chin this week, while you've got Kelsey on a bye, while you might be missing some other guys and, whoever did what to you on Thursday night obviously had a decent go of it, just don't overreact to get the 6-2 record. You got a long way to go here.
Yeah. I think there might be a
thing there.
Go ahead, Austin.
I think the biggest thing there is that JJ and AJ Brown, their buys are done. Henderson, done. He's finishing up most of his buys outside of like Godwin. So he really doesn't have a whole lot of moves left to make unless somebody gets hurt. So I think you could probably drop A-Rob and then the lowest running back out of this group. I would see what Michael Gallup's matchup is on certain buys. Like if Dallas has a good matchup, then maybe Gallup gets the most that day. I think I would have to do some research like moving forward in the weeks ahead. But I think he's in a fine spot. You take it on the chin, you're 5-3. You have a really good team going into week 9. I think he's just fine.
Well, Gallup since coming back, he hasn't recorded more than 50 receiving yards. He hasn't recorded more than 4 catches. He only has 1 touchdown. He's playing Chicago this week. Not a good matchup for wide receivers. Their secondary has been probably the best aspect of their defense. Green Bay and Minnesota on the road after the bye next week. So I think Gallup has definitely got to be on the list because he's going into a bye.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to boom this week. So I think that he should be on the short list. Madison, I think the only thing that we're waiting for here to like really give him that like really safe floor is a trade. Like he's got to get off the roster. And I don't know if I see that happening because he's been there so long. He's handcuffed Cook for so long. Like I got to imagine that they, like what they have in him.
Well, that's the play. I think that's the play here, right? He's got A.J. Dillon, Khalil Herbert, Alexander Madison, Najee Harris, Darrell Henry. Like he's got a lot of guys that you can start. I might actually start Khalil Herbert at this point, right? I think he's a guy that's shown that he's got flex appeal on a weekly basis. I might be looking at that, hoping, keep my fingers crossed, that the Cook owner is a playoff contending team also. And I'm looking to maybe move Alexander Madison for maybe a small, slight wide receiver piece there, right? And you've got a couple selling points. One, hey, he's your handcuff for when you move into the season. And 2, there's trade discussions around, hey, is Alexander Madison a trade candidate right now? And if he goes to a team where he's going to get some work then you're looking at a kind of a win-win situation. You get to fill that wide receiver spot a little bit. You can drop Gallup. You can drop Allen Robinson, who another wide receiver that people are rostering. Shit, I might play Olamide Zaccheaus over these two guys right now. Like, it's that, like, you've got other players that you can really look at this point. So I might be looking to try to move Alexander Madison instead of dropping him.
Yeah, especially if you're in a league where when your trade gets accepted, it goes right through.
Right.
Definitely a guy that I would be looking to move on an opportunity like that, because if it goes straight through, like, you can get a piece for this week. You know what I mean? So I love those.
That whole team feels like not the whole team, but the bench feels like what ifs. Like, what if Madison gets traded for Henderson? What if the Rams go out and get a running back? Herbert, he's good. He's been good behind Montgomery. He's even better when Montgomery's out. AJ Dillon's a massive what if. Michael Gallup's a massive what if, because Dallas just isn't the offense. Granted, like, Cooper Rush has played most of the year, so the offensive numbers are really low. But Gallup only got 2 targets last week against the Lions, which surprised the crap out of me. No catches, 2 targets. So, like, is that going to be how Michael Gallup is? So it feels like a lot of what ifs, but his starting team feels fine enough to just contend moving forward anyways.
Right on. All right, we got our last starter sit question. This is a flex one. I think I know where you guys are going with this one. Miles Sanders versus Pittsburgh, Jacoby Myers at the Jets, or Eno Benjamin at Minnesota. What do you think?
For me, it's Jacoby Myers. I'm actually going to go Myers here. He's really been targeted here recently with Mac Jones in week 2. He got I think 9 targets. In week 1, he had 6. He got targeted with Bailey Zappi. And when you think about them playing the New York Jets, I think Sauce is hurt, but it looks like he's going to play. Is that accurate? With Sauce playing, he's going to be on Devontae Parker, not Jacoby Myers. And that's going to even force the ball a little bit more in Jacoby Myers' way. So I'm leaning Jacoby Myers over Eno Benjamin, who we've got the question marks about, but we've talked, and Miles Sanders, who the touchdowns get vultured by Jalen Hurts. I mean, and then the occasional, appearance of Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. So I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers here.
Yeah, it feels like anybody in that Philly backfield could score 2 touchdowns any week. So I think Miles Sanders is a great player, but even Raheem Mostert only put up 4.9 yards a carry against the Steelers defense. They're a good defense, and I think Lane Johnson might even be out. So Philly's line is beat up a little bit. I do like Jacoby Myers. I do like Eno Benjamin. So once again, I'm going to say, if Darrell Williams is out, I'm going to hammer Eno Benjamin wherever I have him. Because I think Kyler does a decent amount of checkdowns. It's going to be a high-scoring game, I feel, because Arizona's secondary is god-awful. And I think Kirk's going to sling the ball, and Kyler's going to be doing whatever he can to score 5 points in a Cliff Kingsbury offense. So Williams out, give me Eno Benjamin. But if Williams is in any capacity whatsoever, give me Myers.
We clarified that Mac Jones is the starter this week.
I believe so.
Yep.
So what do we think the chances are that Bill continues to do what he did last week? The back and forth, like it's, like where it's Michigan State or something.
It didn't work last week, so I don't think that's going to happen again.
But it's Bill. Bill, Bill wants to prove a point, Bill proves a point.
Well, so we talked about this on the show on Thursday, Dave and I. Like, this is the Patriot way, right? They like to showcase those backup quarterbacks, and then they get draft capital and move those guys to other teams. It's happened consistently. Ryan Mallett was a name that came up on Thursday, right? Started a game, ended up in Houston, and was smashed ass. Matt Castle, like, it just happens, right? So is that kind of what Bill's doing right now? I personally don't. I've never been a Mac Jones guy. So, I mean, I'd be happy if Bailey Zappi got the opportunity there also because I'm from Kentucky. So I'm okay with a Hilltopper getting that starting gig. But there's no way that that's like the offense moving forward, that he's going to play this dual quarterback play.
That's the only thing that concerns me about Jacoby Myers and anyone on the Patriots whose name isn't Ramondre Stevenson, because it doesn't matter who the quarterback is for Ramondre. He's just going to run, right? And he's been looking fantastic. For me, I guess that's like the only person right now I really trust for the Patriots. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm starting Devontae Parker and Jacoby Myers where needed. I need bodies. We got guys on bye. We've got injured players. Like, don't get me wrong. Those guys are in my lineups in various situations. But if I have Eno Benjamin, I'm going with him. The Arizona Cardinals can run the ball. James Conner was the 5th best running back last season. Obviously, not as expected, but many predicted, going back to the well with Conner this year might be a little bit risky, as it has been in the details, right? So I like Benjamin, even with Williams there, just over these two options. Some of the guys that we had mentioned before, I think, are a little bit closer with him, like the DJ Moore, the Michael Carters. They're a little bit closer. In this situation, I think he's a little bit more above Myers and Sanders. All right, we are going to hit a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back after this. Ready to win money and boost your odds? WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. We're bringing the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas to the online sports betting and casino play. They're offering exclusive of rewards that are right at your fingertips with Wynn Rewards on WynnBET. Be on the lookout for the WynnBET Win Hour each Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. During the WynnBET Win Hour, marquee games of the week will have better odds on WynnBET, giving you a larger payout opportunity. They have great promos. Odds and payouts are happening right now at WynnBET, from boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds on every major sport. WynnBET has what you need to win. Are you ready to play? If you sign up today, you'll receive a special offer. Bet $100, win $100. There's so much to choose from, and all you have to do is head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET. So they know that we sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today. Offer subject to change, terms and conditions at wynnbet.com. Must be 21 or older and present in the state where playthrough WynnBET is available. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call 1-800-522-4700.
Yeah, and we've already talked about one giveaway, that Deebo Samuel jersey that the SGPN fantasy football team is doing for you, but it's not the only one. Our mothership, the Sports Gambling Podcast, is also giving you a chance to win your choice of
Did I lose you?
Lawrence Taylor or an autographed Brian Dawkins jersey, who was just
I think we're losing Brad.
Fly, Eagles fly. And this contest is completely free for you to enter. All you have to go is subscribe at youtube.com/sportsgamblingpodcast, comment on any video, and get this. You do multiple videos, you get multiple entries. So go in, watch all those videos, comment on all of them, and make sure you turn those notifications on so that you don't miss out on SGP contacting you when they pull you as that winner.
You better check the Wi-Fi, Spider-Man.
Why? What happened?
You're going in and out. Your picture's going out too.
Damn it.
You're freezing up there a little bit. It's all right. We got through it. We're good. All right. We're moving on to some trade grades. We're doing some swaps in the old fantasy land. Some of these are pretty interesting. Maybe a little bit one-sided. You guys be the judge. All right. First completed trade. These are all real trades that you can find on Yahoo in their Yahoo Fantasy Football Trade Hub. All right. Side A, you guys let me know the grade on the swap, if it's a good trade, and which side that you want. Side A, a little underwhelming this season. Drake London, wide receiver, Atlanta Falcons. Or side B, he's on the come up. Stock is rising. Kadarius Toney, wide receiver, recently with the New York Giants, now with the Kansas City Chiefs. What do you think about this one, Austin?
Are these redraft trades?
You can grade it from whatever aspect that you like. We don't get that information.
If this is a redraft trade, this is a fat F for me, because there's just what is this doing? What I don't understand what this trade does. Drake, we saw last week Atlanta doesn't throw the ball regardless, so we got to wait for Arthur Smith to be fired apparently for Drake London's
poor Arthur
for his value to give up. I mean, it's ridiculous. I could go on for hours about this. We've talked about it so much. Like, Marcus Mariota isn't a bad thrower. Why isn't he throwing to Pitts in London?
He's still Marcus Mariota, though.
True. You got me there. And then getting Kadarius Toney. When am I starting Kadarius Toney this season? I'm not starting him his first week in the Kansas City offense. I might not even start him in the second week of the Kansas City offense. I guess the London side is better a little bit, but I just don't understand the point of this trade. It doesn't feel like either team got better per se, because both these guys aren't getting starts right now anyways.
Well, if you owned either of them, I got to imagine both are on your bench. So you're just swapping bench assets in redraft. I think in Dynasty, I don't know. Like, I think it gets a little bit more difficult to gauge at that point because you have Juju leaving KC next year. That opens a window for obviously more touches and just, more opportunity. But do we believe that Kansas City views Kadarius Toney as that type of receiver? I mean, it's not like they gave up much for him. It's not like they expose themselves to a ton of risk. I think they're doing something right now in the meantime to just move the chains because they have no identity in the run game. I think the trade hurts Mecole Hardman a little bit, who's looked impressive the past few weeks, who's kind of been that gadget guy to, again, just move the chains in some short yardage opportunities, get a couple of extra carries because they need some explosivity out of that backfield. So I think for redraft, I would say that the trade is kind of, like it's not a good grade. It's like a C. It's like, what are we doing here? I agree with that aspect. But I think that the side that I would want for this season is Kadarius Toney, because I just want to get more exposure to that KC passing game and less exposure to the Atlanta passing game. What do you think, Spider-Man?
Yeah, I agree. I think Kadarius Toney is the play here, which is crazy. This dude hasn't even been on the field enough to warrant a trade. Like, it feels like somebody picked him up off the waiver wire and said, ooh, an opportunity. Let's just move him for literally anything I can get. And somebody's awesome. Like, I'll give you Drake London for it.
You know what?
So I mean,
$7 fob turns into London? What?
Yeah, right. So, but that really is where it's at because, I'm not a believer in Marcus Mariota. I think at some point they make that move to Desmond Ridder. And then there may actually be more opportunity for Drake London because the Atlanta Falcons are going to kind of want to see what Desmond Ridder is. But I don't think that necessarily translates to anything. And that, that explosiveness that Kansas City could give Kadarius Toney, all you got to do is give him the ball in space and he can make a lot happen. He's not like a refined wide receiver or anything like that, but they can create. They are very creative in creating touches and opportunities for players that they want to get the ball in their hands. And I think Kadarius Toney kind of fits that. So that's the guy I'm going with here, as gross as it feels.
I mean, it doesn't feel gross. I mean, I think that Kansas City is trying to find their next Tyreek Hill. And I'm not going to say that Kadarius Toney is that guy, but he's a great route runner. He's got great footwork. He can get himself open. So he may not be that like crazy down the field, throw up the deuces threat, but I feel like when healthy, he's going to be a weapon in this offense. So like I said, for redraft, I definitely want to grab his side of the trade. I definitely want Toney's side. In Dynasty, it becomes a much different conversation because you have to start making your bets. Like you have to, take your stand. Like, where is KC going to be next year? Will they draft a young wide receiver? Will Toney be, the 1A option on this roster next year? And if he is, like, if you believe that in your heart, then by all means, that side's the winner. Next year, we don't know what Atlanta will do with quarterback. Will they hang on to Mariota? Will Ridder step up? Will they make a move? Will they try to go out and get Jimmy Garoppolo? Look at that offense next season, right? Calvin Ridley, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Maybe they make a splash at running back in the offseason or in the draft, right? Like, this team on paper, they're going to look really good next year. They're going to look damn good, and they're going to be an ideal location for whether it's a quarterback or a running back to land there to improve their offense. All right, next up, we've got a big haul here. We've got side A, Ramondre Stevenson, Terry McLaurin, Kenny Pickett. For side B, in DeAndre Hopkins. Which way you going, Austin?
This one's close. If you really need to start Stevenson and McLaurin and Pickett every single week, like those are your guys moving forward, then I would take that side. I'm still a little bit wary on Ramondre Stevenson. I know he's a great running back, but I'm really confused at what Bill's going to do with Damian Harris. If Damian Harris gets traded, obviously it's a different story.
Love that.
It would be wild. I only like Terry McLaurin as long as Taylor Heineke's the quarterback, because Taylor Heineke just looks McLaurin's way the most awesome? For some reason. It's great. It's great. I'm starting McLaurin because of this, but the second Heineke leaves, I'm not starting McLaurin. And then Pickett, if you're starting Pickett as your quarterback because you have to, then I'm sorry. But then you got DeAndre Hopkins, who's absolutely going to get peppered week after week after week. They were up big on New Orleans, and they were still hitting them with targets and catches. So it's close for me. I love DeAndre Hopkins, super high on him, drafted him in a lot of leagues, and he sucked up the bench spot, and I thought it was worth it. But if you are starting Stevenson and at least McLaurin every week because you have to, I do like that side. I think it's a good trade for both sides. I think one guy significantly improves at running back, and another guy improves at some depth and some starting guys that maybe you're tanking, or maybe you just kind of need those guys to fill roles. Personally, I take the Hopkins side simply because I just love DeAndre Hopkins. A little bias here, but the absolute numbers he's getting with Kyler Murray, and I think he'll get all season, especially because Arizona is going to be playing from behind a ton. Their defense is awful. It's so bad. But Call of Duty came out yesterday, so we'll see what happens. So it's close for me, though. It super depends on more information, obviously, like every trade does. But I think this is a good trade for both sides.
What do you think, Spider-Man?
Yeah, for me, I think dynasty or redraft, I'm going to take the Stevenson, McLaurin, and Pickett side. From a dynasty perspective, I think it's kind of a smash, to be completely honest, unless you're looking to really solidify that wide receiver position to try to win this year. But even if I'm in a win now situation, I still think I like the other side. I'm going into that playoff portion of the fantasy football season where I get some depth. And depth is extremely important going into that fantasy football playoffs, because if you lose a guy, we're working on an article on that right now. It's very important to have guys that you can plug into there. And I don't know that you're losing a lot of production at this point when you are able to plug in Ramondre Stevenson over some of these, maybe you've got AJ Dillon. You're really probably looking at those guys drafted pretty close to one another. And AJ Dillon is producing nothing for you, and he's in that spot, and you get the opportunity to swap those two with a Ramondre Stevenson and put Terry McLaurin in, who they paid that big contract to, and we've seen him produce in the past as well. So I think I'm going the Stevenson, McLaurin, Pickett side.
I agree with both of you. So Hopkins, win now option. If you are trying to win this season right now and you need to do this trade to propel yourself into a better position and you have the depth, go ahead, target Hopkins. If it's dynasty format, I want the other side because, again, you're getting those longer term assets. Buying in at a quarterback that low, that young for just one wide receiver that may not last you a couple more seasons at best, I'm good with it. I think it's a good swap for dynasty in favor of the multiple asset side, and I think it's a great win now option if you're trying to go all in. Especially if you acquired Hopkins after he sat out those first weeks, right? Like you were able to get a little bit of value out of these other options. And then once Hopkins, showed you that he's good to go, he's healthy, he's conditioned, he's had 6 full weeks of rest or whatever, 7, he's going to be good to go. So I like it in a couple of different avenues here. Like I said, Hopkins, good win now option, but Stevenson and McLaurin and Pickett for dynasty, those are great assets for another 2 or 3 year window, in my opinion. All right, a couple more here. Next up, we've got a nice little swap for CMC. We've got Jalen Waddle and Pollard for Christian McCaffrey. What do you think, Austin?
I thought about this one before the show too, because this is really interesting. I love Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, one of the best running backs when he's healthy. Availability is one of the best abilities. He's a Niner now. He's on an offense with a lot of pieces, a lot of playmakers. So we still don't know what he's going to be in this offense, how many touches he's going to get. Personally, I think he gets less touches, but he's more efficient with his touches. I don't think he gets as many catches. The problem I have with Jalen Waddle, I love Jalen Waddle too, but he's always going to be number 2. He's always going to be number 2 to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is going to get more targets. I've watched a lot of Dolphins games, and I have a lot of stock in both players, but Tyreek is just going to get more balls from Tua for sure. Tony Pollard is a smash play this week, especially with Zeke out. But when Zeke is in, we've seen that Zeke is probably going to get most of the red zone carries. He's going to probably take most of those touchdowns from Tony. And neither running back is really getting a ton of receptions because the offense isn't as great. Obviously, like I said, they're hard to evaluate because Cooper Rush was the starter for 5 weeks. I think I'm going to take the CMC side just by a little bit, mainly because Jalen Waddle's at number 2. It's basically 2 number 2s for the main number 1 guy.
Yep.
And right now, I just like Christian McCaffrey a little bit more because he's healthy. Obviously, I don't think you're trading for Christian McCaffrey if he's hurt right now, unless you're in Dynasty, and then maybe his value is even lower. But at the current moment, I'm taking CMC by a little bit, but I like both sides.
What do you think?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I think I lean CMC, but I also see an opportunity or a world where that Waddle Pollard side ends up better than CMC this year, mainly because of that volume play. Elijah Mitchell coming off of IR here pretty soon. Jeff Wilson's still there. They typically deploy multiple running backs in that system. Plus, you have Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel getting some of those touches in the backfield. And we just don't quite know what Kyle Shanahan is going to do with CMC. But the potential for 20 plus fantasy points every game is still there with Christian McCaffrey. Some help on the offensive side of the ball right now. It's not clicking in San Francisco. So I think CMC kind of slights a little bit here for me.
I'm leaning the CMC side. Austin, you hit it on the head, at least for like my reasoning is that Waddle and Hill, they share the stage. Pollard and Zeke, they share the stage. I feel like this trade is an overreaction to the matchups for this upcoming week. Oh my God, Waddle's going to boom this week. He's playing Detroit. Oh my God, Pollard's in and Zeke is hurt. This is going to be the narrative for the rest of the season. So I really don't love this swap. I'm still going with the CMC trade because it's a top 5 running back, for Pollard, who even during his best weeks is probably a running back 2. And Waddle is a fringe 1, wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. And I just feel that if CMC is playing to his level, his safe floor should carry you through the season. And I feel like the only way I do this swap is if I'm a CMC owner and I just lost Mike Williams and Breece Hall, or a situation like that, right? Where I'm a contender. I still need to, try to move the needle week in and week out. I have this piece where, yeah, I can get a potential wide receiver 1 and running back 2, potentially week in and week out, but I need more dominoes to fall for those narratives to be like locks, to just be, 100%, getting you to bed at night and you're not losing sleep over that trade. So for me, I'm going with CMC there. It's not an easy one per se, because like I said, I think that there are some ways that Waddle and Pollard could go over the top. Like Brad had mentioned, there could be some weeks where that side B is winning the trade, but I feel like season long, and even for the next couple of seasons, if you're doing this out of a redraft form, dynasty format, I still think that CMC is going to be that guy, especially if he's going to be in San Francisco long-term. The next upcoming season or two, they may not have that whole bevy of running backs in the room because you just spent a lot on a running back. So it might just be CMC and dudes off their couch, which by all means, if CMC gets hurt, Shanahan will make those dudes off the couch, running back assets. That's what he does.
Yeah, and Tony Pollard's future is a giant question mark after this season right now. We have no idea where he's going.
Exactly.
I think everybody thinks Tony Pollard's young also, but he's like a year younger than Zeke. He's still a 26-year-old running back.
He looks about 5 years younger
from a
on the field.
dynasty perspective, people look at it and they're like, oh man, I'm getting a young running back that's quite possibly going to get the opportunity to be the guy. But he's not young. He's not young by running back standards. So,
all right, last swap here, and then we're going to get into our over-under picks. This one's interesting. Dallas Goedert for Brandon Ayuk, straight up. Am I crazy to just go with the tight end because he's a tight end? That's okay.
That's what I'm leaning. He's the number 8 tight end. You get a top 10 tight end, which is not saying much, but...
Well, and you get rid of Brandon Ayuk, who they just added Christian McCaffrey that we just talked about, right? So does he lose a little bit of that pass volume that he's seen the last few weeks? So I would go with Goddard as well.
Yeah, I mean, that one's a little bit easier for me. Ayuk, like you mentioned, he's hurt. Everybody needs a reliable tight end. Ayuk, you probably drafted to your bench. You're not giving up much. And the guy that has Goddard probably, he probably drafted Mark Andrews with him, or he also has Tyler Higbee, or I was about to say David Njoku, but he got hurt. Ain't nobody safe at tight end. We got Clutch Plays 180 in the chat. 10-man, half point, PPR, Eckler, Devontae Smith for Tyreek, and Jonathan Taylor. I'm holding X number 1 right now. What do you guys think?
Man,
I'm also not on the Tyreek Hill train. I'm still staying off. I wasn't on it to start the season. We've seen some highs and lows from him. I'm staying off. I'm not in, mostly because of the quarterback
situation. Highs and lows from Tyreek Hill? No, I don't believe you. It's super close for me. Like Tyreek Hill and Austin Eckler are kind of on the same wavelength of points scored right now. Maybe points per game is a little bit different because Austin Eckler's on an absolute tear right now.
Mhm.
I'm kind of off Devonta Smith right now because I just don't know what he's going to get week to week. Jalen, obviously, they have the insane rushing game and they still have good wide receivers to throw to. And I don't think they, throw to Devonta Smith a lot week to week. Obviously, he
Mhm.
has some boom weeks. And Jonathan Taylor is obviously, we thought one of the best running backs going into the season, and the line is non-existent. I don't know what it's going to look like with Sam Ellinger. Obviously, I'm a big believer of put the ball in the hands of your best player, and the
Mhm.
best player on the Colts right now is Jonathan Taylor. But I don't think I could tell you to get rid of Austin Eckler right now because he's on that tear.
And keep in mind too, Keenan Allen, super struggle bus right now with injuries. Mike Williams has now entered the same struggle bus, right? Who is going to catch the ball? You've got guys like Josh Palmer, Gerald Everett. Eckler's volume and usage should continue to rise. Jonathan Taylor, like you'd mentioned, negative add to the narrative with Ellinger. Tyreek Hill, I'm just like, Tyreek's great. He's a talent. I just don't trust the quarterbacks there. I don't know how much longer. I'm not saying how much longer Tua will last, but I feel like he's one good hit away from the blue tent, like week in and week out. And I just don't want to continue to expose myself to that. I feel like Raheem Mostert right now is the safest option for the Dolphins. Call me crazy, but that's where I'm at with them.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I am a Devonta Smith lover. Like, I mean, that guy, I've been a huge fan of his. I think he's an absolutely smash at the wide receiver position, just playing the position. People were worried about his size, and he's proven over a year and a half. Look, I don't take big hits. I'm really good at playing wide receiver, and you can trust me. And I think you see that from Jalen Hurts in most games, right? I think week one was kind of an anomaly, like it is for a lot of players. But since then, he's really actually had a pretty solid floor and given you a couple really big games as well. And Austin Eckler is getting those targets, and he's going to continue to get those. But I feel like from a week-to-week basis, Tyreek Hill can single-handedly win you a week. Jonathan Taylor single-handedly could win you a week. Now, he hasn't done that this year, right? We're looking at what we saw last year. But I think I'm going to go with the big names on this side. And I don't want to overreact to what we're seeing with Austin Eckler here recently. I don't want to overreact for my love for Devonta Smith. So I think I'm going to go with the big names and hope that Indianapolis kind of rights the ship and just giving Jonathan Taylor the volume that we know that he can produce using.
Right. Yeah, I actually just looked at Devonta Smith, and he's only had like 2 weeks where he's laid. Well, I wouldn't even call him lay eggs. I think
the first week was an egg. I don't think he had a single catch in week one.
Yeah, he went 0 for 4. But since then, week 2, 7 for 7, 80 receiving yards. Week 3 was the big boom, 8 for 12, 169 and a touchdown. Week 4 and week 1 were the duds. He had less than 5 fantasy points in each of those games. Every other week, he's had at least 5 catches or 50 plus receiving yards or a touchdown. I don't know. I feel like
he's really good.
I mean, I wasn't high on him. You and I definitely got into it before the season started on Devonta Smith. Wasn't someone that I was high on because I wasn't high on the passing offense of the Eagles, and Jalen Hurts has definitely made an improvement there. You can't deny it. So I'm still leaning with that side. The narratives for Eckler, the positive narratives continue to build up for him. Already on a hot run right now. He's going to have to get hurt I feel like for him to ruin this side of the trade. And Jonathan Taylor, you don't know what to expect with a new quarterback. Can definitely win you a week, but right now he's losing you weeks. All right, we're moving on to our underdog fantasy totals. We're going to do one from each position and then head out and enjoy our Saturdays. Been a long one and a good one. Austin, we've got Dak Prescott on the menu. 17.35 fantasy points against Chicago. What do you got? Over under?
I'm going to go under. I love Dak Prescott. Don't get me wrong. But the Dallas defense is absolutely dominant. We only really have to put up 10 to 17 points a game, it feels like, to win a game. There's just no reason for Dak to air it out. I think they're going to run the ball a lot with Tony, and I can't remember our third string running back, but I think it's just going to be a lot of running, especially if Quinn's gone.
Isn't it Rico?
I think so.
Rico Dowdle? I
It
think
is
is the
definitely
third string.
possible.
Can we just get Cavante Turbin carries, please?
But yeah, it's going to be a lot of unders for Dak for me until I see something different moving forward. The defense is just, they're honestly scoring their own touchdowns too. So they're not even, we don't need to score on offense. It's just not there. And Robert Quinn's gone. So he'll have more time in the pocket to throw, but also it makes the run game even better.
Be scared. Be scared. Robert Quinn wasn't doing nothing this season for the Bears. All right. He had like 18 sacks last season. He only had 1 so far this year. They were looking to get him off the roster prior to the season even starting. I'm surprised it even took this long. I am also on the under for Dak. Very underwhelming up against a Detroit defense last week. Only 1 passing touchdowns, right around 200 passing yards. Very conservative. Very conservative. The secondary for the Bears is going to be much more difficult. Not as much of a light matchup as the spread will say. Hashtag Bears cover. Yeah, Chicago allowing the 8th fewest fantasy points at quarterback position. Slam the under here. What do you got, Parker?
I feel like I'm contrarian on almost everything with y'all today. I think I'm going to go the over. I think this is a get-right game. There was a lot of criticism around Dak Prescott in his first start, and I think Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy looked to kind of say, look, shut up. We know what we're doing here. We won that game. We're going to win this week. And I think they give Dak a little bit more of an opportunity to throw, especially with Zeke missing. I think they're going to allow him to kind of do his thing a little bit. Coming back from that hand injury, it was still kind of questionable around his grip strength and how well he was going to be able to throw the ball. He only had 25 attempts against the Detroit team last week.
Pretty conservative, right?
Say that again.
Pretty conservative, right?
Yeah. And I think they look at it as, okay, he's another week removed, another week of getting that hand strength back. And he's going to, I think he's going to throw the ball 30 to 35 times. And that he scored 15 fantasy points last week. So you add 10 more attempts for two more fantasy points. I think that's possible. So I'm going to take the over here.
Jalen Johnson's taking one to the house. Six.
Spoken like a true Bears fan.
That's right. I ain't scared.
That's right.
Dalvin Cook, 15.55. I think he's hit this number once this season. I'm slamming the under here. What do you think, Austin?
We'll go up.
Taking the over.
Arizona is middle of the road when it comes to rushing, but boy, is their secondary bad. He could really hit the under here because Kirk might air it out to Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen and Irv Smith Jr. I think Dalvin can get a couple catches in there to save his value for the week. Maybe it's not a 20 bomb. Maybe it's close around to this 14, 15 range, so he could just hit the under. But I think he can get close to 16, 17. I think he can find the end zone, and I think a couple catches will save his value for the week.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think the game script is really going to be in Dalvin Cook's favor. I think they're going to be in the red zone a ton. I think this is an opportunity where he's could see multiple touchdowns again, like he did. I think what was that, week 3 or whenever it was that he had the 90-yard 2-touchdown game or whatever it was. So I think you could very similarly see something like that because they're going to score, I think, a ton of points in this matchup. So I'm going to go with the over on this one.
Yeah, it might be close, but I think that the other weapons, like Austin had mentioned, they're in line for bigger days. JJ, Irv Smith probably finds the end zone again. We'll see. I also own a bunch of Dalvin Cook, so I doubt that he'll actually bring it home for me. All right, next up, Tyreek Hill. It's a big number, but it's a great matchup. 17.75 against the Detroit Lions. One of the worst secondaries on this season. What do you guys think?
This one deep catch. 150-yard touchdown bomb against quite possibly the absolute worst pass defense in the league. And I think that's an over. I think I'm going to take the over here also.
What do you think, Austin?
To nobody's surprise, he's hit that over 3 times and been under 4 times. So big games or no big games. If it's not a big game this week, when is it going to be? I know he's already had big games this year, but this is the Tyreek Hill game. They absolutely blew Baltimore out of the water. I feel like this is what it's going to be like. Detroit has DeAndre Swift back, so they should score a decent amount of points as well. So I don't think Miami is going to fall behind per se, but I think they're going to have to keep up a number to be ahead of Detroit. And I think it's just going to be a big day for all of Miami's offense.
For the sake of not taking all unders, I'll take the over here because I know I'm taking the over with my next pick. So just to not be a Scrooge on Halloween, I'll take the over here. But I do think it is going to be kind of close. I don't know where the Lions found their defense on their bye week, but they played pretty well up against Detroit last week, better than their defense has performed since the beginning of the season. So I feel like there could be some opportunity to take the under, but Tyreek, the volume is there. He's getting double-digit targets out of those are the four. There are four weeks out of the 7 so far. He's gotten double-digit targets. He wasn't getting that type of love in Kansas City, and I know that I was someone that was lower on him coming into the season because look at the quarterbacks. You go from Patrick Mahomes to Tua, but Tua's getting him 14, 15 targets. Like he wasn't getting that in Kansas City because he had Travis Kelce right next to him. Right, there was a little bit more spreading of the love. So, yeah, as long as he's getting the double-digit targets this week, he's absolutely going to hit this number. Like I said, for the sake of, not being a Scrooge, I will take the over 17.75 here. At least one big play is going to come, and then those other, hooks and out routes should seal it there, Parker. All right, Pat Freiermuth, 8-something. What is it? 8.05. This is a smash for me. I'm pretty sure he's hit it like half of the games he's played this season.
Yeah, I was originally thinking about the under here, and then when you think about Kenny Pickett, you look at Kenny Pickett loves George Pickens, and he loves Pat Freiermuth. So this is an opportunity where I think he's going to see 5+ catches, and if 5+, all you need is 30 yards at that point, and I think it's a pretty easy over for Freiermuth going into this week.
Yeah, I love that one.
If he's hitting those numbers with Mitch Trubisky, he's hitting those numbers with Kenny Pickett. He 8 points. It's easy. He doesn't even need to hit a touchdown this week to make that.
Yeah, exactly. Very friendly number. Be sure to plug some of those options into your Underdog cards for this week. This was a great show. Great week 8 preview. Austin, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, FF Bourbon Dude. What do you got?
At FF Bourbon Dude on Twitter. You can find all my stuff on sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Snapshare articles coming out every week. I'm going to go get some candy. I'm not taking it from anybody. I'm going to go hand some out.
What's your favorite grab out of the bucket? If your kid's bringing a big old bucket,
Smarties.
Bucket. Smarties? Okay.
Smarties are a smash for me. I am an absolute Smarties freak. And luckily for me, my wife doesn't like them to have pure sugar. It has to have chocolate in it. So all those are saved for dad. So,
all right. Fair enough. What about you, Austin?
You can find me and my co-host Devin at TMSM Podcast, like it says right there. We're live every Monday night at 6:30, so you can watch a little Monday Night Football with us while we recap and scream at the screen on why the Jets are 5-2. So make it make sense. Sometimes we're here.
That's why, buddy.
Sometimes we're on YouTube Sunday mornings doing start and sits. If we're not, we're on Twitter doing it. So you got start sit show on Sunday mornings before kickoff. You got us doing recaps on Monday nights. All of our stuff is at TMSM Podcast, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all that jazz. So hit us up. We're trying to blow up. We're purely all NFL content now and fantasy football content all year round. So stuff's never going to change with us.
Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah, go follow Austin and the Makeshift Managers podcast. We will be back tomorrow. We're also going to be doing a week 8 preview show. We're going to be doing start and sits, injury updates, and all that jazz. Me and Brad will be on there tomorrow, and we'll also have that available every Sunday going forward through the second half of the season. A couple more notes. You want to win the Deebo Samuel jersey, go ahead and comment on any YouTube video, follow the YouTube channel, and then DM us screenshots of those completed tasks at SGPN Fantasy on Twitter. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com, smash the fantasy tab. We've got all the good stuff for you. Brad mentioned his Snapshare articles. We've got IDP. We've got Dynasty. We've got all the good stuff for you, all the advice and rankings that you're going to need to finish out this year strong. Come and ride with us. We'll take care of you. Again, at SGPN Fantasy on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at SGPNJB. Take care. Be well, be good. And if you can't be good at it. We'll see you.